Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am Linda Kewen, along with my partner, Tanya Pierce, your host for today's program. City officials, department directors, friends, family, and all distinguished guests here today, on behalf of Chief Jim Cervera and the men and women of the Virginia Beach Police Department, welcome to our award ceremony. In particular, I would like to welcome our mayor, Will Sessoms, city manager, Dave Hansen, Deputy City Manager, Steve Cover, Deputy City Manager, Ken Chandler, Assistant Chief Emerson from Norfolk Police Department, EMS Chief Ed Brazel, and Sheriff Stolley and his 3 grandchildren. Four grandchildren. At this time, I ask for a moment of silence for the men and women who have made the ultimate sacrifice. Thank you. Following the opening remarks and invocation, we will begin today's ceremony. Ladies and gentlemen, the Virginia Beach Police Department Honor Guard will present our colors, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance and the invocation delivered by Chaplain Roger Gauthier. Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Order. Arms. Right face. Forward. Arms. Forward. March.
Chaplain Gauthier.
May we pray. Today we come to you who deserve all valor and commendation and ask you to bestow upon those the honor which is due. We thank you today for the honor and blessings and gifts, even to family, that you will bestow upon public servants, police officers, and citizens alike. May they carry these honors with pride, dignity, and compassion. They would say it was all in a day's work, but we know, Lord, that you like to honor those who have compassion on others. Do so today. Amen.
Thank you, Chaplain. Please be seated. The awards committee is comprised of 10 master police officers from different commands and 1 lieutenant. This committee has the responsibility to review, investigate, and recommend awards for citizens and members of our department based on the award selection criteria. I would like to thank this year's awards committee members for their attention to detail and dedication. To the award recipients, we are honored to present this program as a way to say thank you for your dedication to our community and our department. We also thank your family for their support in what you do every day. I'd like to ask Chief Cervera to come to the podium for opening remarks.
Okay. Good afternoon. It's like 60 degrees out. It's December 1st, and a lot of folks are wearing short-sleeve shirts. What an absolute drop-dead gorgeous day today is, but as the mayor will tell you, every day in Virginia Beach is a drop-dead gorgeous day. My staff knows I usually start off by saying when I was a young cop in the mid-'70s, there was a book out, and it was called Super Cops. There's really no such thing as super cops. I've been told that cops are ordinary men and women who, by the very nature of their existence, do extraordinary things. And I always like to think about that. Are police officers really ordinary men and women? Because ordinary men and women don't first put on a bulletproof vest when they get ready to go to work. And ordinary men and women do not check to make sure that there's a round in the chamber. They do that press check when they first get ready to go to work. And ordinary men and women do not do the things that you will hear about today. So maybe cops aren't so ordinary after all. And when I say that, I also like to include our colleagues in our emergency response system, our friends in fire, and our friends in EMS, because we do a lot of things as a system together, which you will not see in many cities across the country. Today we're going to talk about some police officers who have gone above and beyond being extraordinary. Some people will call them heroes. They're heroes that, by example, show us that anything is possible. They're heroes by their decisions. They demonstrate a courage that is not common in the average population. And we see a hero that finds strength to overcome adversity and to thrive. We have seen heroes that connect and unify when a unification is needed to stop or to mitigate the amount of death and destruction that is blatantly obvious to occur. Each of these heroes and many more of our officers garner from within themselves the unimaginable fortitude to change the lives of others with absolute sacrifice and unmitigated determination. I once read where courage is not the absence of fear. It is somewhere between fear and recklessness. It is that an individual has the ability to overcome the fear and to move forward, and you will hear that today. As a chief of police in Virginia Beach, I've often said it's very easy to be the chief here because of our staff, and I want you to know that I consider myself blessed because today I will stand next to these extraordinary individuals who exemplify that cops do things for people that they've never met, they have no connection to, and they will never see again. And you may ask, well, why do they do these things? Because they're cops, and that's what cops do. At this time, it is my honor to introduce our mayor of our city, Mayor Will Sessoms.
Well, good afternoon. And let me just say it is truly a privilege and an honor to be here with you this afternoon and to take part in this award ceremony. Every year, we come together to publicly recognize and reward individuals, both uniformed and civilian, for extraordinary acts of heroism. On this special occasion, we take the time to thank these men and women. They are true heroes of our community, and their actions help keep us and our families safe and secure. Today, we're honoring more than 47 members of the police department and 4 citizens for their acts of bravery, courage, and selflessness. Most are individuals who, by virtue of being in a certain place at a certain time, acted instinctively, without giving a second thought to the danger before them or the consequences they might face. Like jumping in icy waters to save a life, or chasing down a bank robber, or organizing events to engage citizens with police officers, or working to put some cold-blooded criminals behind bars. It takes great courage to face the bad guys, whether it's staring down the barrel of a gun or stepping forward to identify someone who committed a crime. Virginia Beach is the safest city of its size in America because of the work of our law enforcement officers and the extraordinary efforts of our citizens. Everyone knows that I go around and tell everyone, wherever I am across this country or across the world for that matter. And what do I tell them? I tell them this is the greatest city in the world. But let me sit here and tell you that the mayor of Virginia Beach could not say that without having the best police department in the world and the greatest citizens we serve. They're the best in the world too. So on behalf of the City Council and your fellow citizens of Virginia Beach, I applaud you and thank you for your selfless efforts and your dedication. Thank you very much.
And now for the presentation of awards. When your name is called, please enter the stage to your right. After the award presentation, pose for a picture and exit the stage to your left. Lieutenants Scott Humphrey and Bobby Wynn. Sergeants John Geluso and Brian Ricardo. Master Police Officers Sean Aiken, James Bowder, Brad Canning, Dan Denenza, Lamont Devane, Carl Harvey, Jennifer Johannesen, Wayne Lincoln, Dion Paniza, Alan Perry, Jennifer Hunter, and Amanda Roby. Unit Citation. Collectively, these members of the department's honor guard make up more than 150 years worth of dedicated service to the unit. This is an ancillary assignment that they have committed to in addition to their normal duty assignment. The duties of the honor guard include, but are not limited to, representing the department at official ceremonies, retired and active duty funeral and memorial services, large public and city and regional events such as parades and athletic events. The department's honor guard has been called upon and has fulfilled funeral service duties for military personnel in the absence of the U.S. Armed Forces Honor Guard. Due to the nature of funeral and memorial services, they frequently are called upon to serve with very little notice and at the sacrifice of their own personal activities. They occasionally travel at their own personal expense and endure additional costs in the care and maintenance of their uniforms. Each of these sworn members has far exceeded the minimum service requirements for the department's honor guard unit. Upon acceptance to the honor guard unit, members are expected to actively participate in practices, training, and assignments for a minimum of 2 years. These members have, at minimum, actively served in the unit well over double that expected time. Their individual years of continued contribution to the honor guard are as follows. Lieutenant Scott Humphrey, 22 years. Mpos Sean Aiken, 21 years. Sergeant John Geluso, 19 years. Sergeant Brian Ricardo, 16 years. MPO Brad Canning, 16 years. MPO Lamont Devane, 16 years. MPO Wayne Lincoln, 13 years. Lieutenant Bobby Wynn, 10 years. MPO Dan Denenza, 9 years. MPO Jennifer Johannesen, 8 years. MPO Alan Perry, 8 years. MPO Carl Harvey, 7 years. MPO D. Paniza, 5 years. MPO Jennifer Hunter, 5 years. MPO Amanda Roby, 5 years. Photographs of our honor guard can be found in the hallways of police headquarters, City Hall, and various other locations, frequently featured on the cover of the department's annual report and other official publications. The members of the Honor Guard personify the values, dedication to the profession, and commitment of the agency to the public. These members have performed in an outstanding manner to forward the mission of the police department in providing invaluable services to the department, city, and the community. It is for these reasons that they are each being awarded the department's unit citation. Lieutenant Bobby Wynn and MPO Brad Canning, special commendation. Lieutenant Bobby Wynn has been a member of the department for 30 years and MPO Canning 20 years. Between the two of them alone, they have been members of the Honor Guard for a combined total of more than 25 years. In addition to the accolades given during the previous award, Lieutenant Wynn and MPO Canning serve as the unit's pipers. They purchased their bagpipe instruments, special custom uniform items, and took lessons on their own time and at their own expense. Their special talents, playing the bagpipes for various funerals, memorials, and other special events, truly add memorable moments for family members, friends, colleagues, and attendees of the services. These two individuals are exemplary members of the Honor Guard, and both have demonstrated and performed an invaluable service to the department, city, and community as Honor Guard pipers. It is for these reasons that they are being awarded the department's special commendation. Officers Michael Weeks and Ross Stolley, special commendation. On the morning of January 30th, 2017, Officers Weeks and Stolley were traveling westbound on Virginia Beach Boulevard when they observed a vehicle that was familiar to them traveling eastbound with two occupants. They recognized the driver, and knowing she had a suspended operator's license, they conducted a traffic stop. By employing exceptional police work, they were able to ascertain information that led to the discovery of crystal meth and a large amount of cash inside the vehicle. Officers Weeks and Stolley also observed that the consistency of the meth appeared to be very clear and looked as though it had been recently broken off from a much larger piece. Due to this, they contacted Special Investigations, who sent detectives to the scene. This has evolved into an expansive federal investigation, which has led to the recovery of large amounts of crystal meth, stolen firearms, and information has been obtained regarding an international drug cartel. Their unparalleled dedication and determination to see each case through provided the solid foundation that this case rests on. It is for these reasons that Officers Michael Weeks and Ross Stolley are being awarded the department's special commendation. Lieutenant William Zelms, Sergeant Kevin Loki, Sergeant Alicia Jones, Sergeant Nicholas Ball, Ryan Chabot, MPO David Nieves, MPO Christopher Washington, MPO Aaron Dove, MPO Frank Philippone, special commendation. In Virginia Beach, approximately 42% of the crime reports filed in the past 3 years indicate a known or suspected juvenile offender under the age of 18. Our city has approximately 116,500 residents under the age of 18. It has also been scientifically established that adolescence actually persists until at least the age of 25 or 26. Approximately 40% of our violent crime victims and 80% of our sex crime victims are reported as being under the age of 26. The percentages for violent crime suspects, property crime suspects, drug crime suspects, and sex crime suspects are consistent with that as well. In 2014, realizing the significance of this data and the perpetually encountered demands upon our profession involving juvenile crime, delinquency, and victimization, the Virginia Beach Police Department deployed a training program intended to teach all officers about the significant percentage of our residents and visitors. This training began in February 2014 when a core group of police officers attended a grant-funded Train the Trainer session provided by Strategies for Youth entitled Policing the Teen Brain. This training was specifically developed for our community. Prior to this initiative, the police department had relied upon in-house instructional content covered briefly for only a few hours in our basic training strategy. This new course, once developed, was a 2-day commitment for our police recruits. Given the outstanding feedback of the first class of recruits and the fact that this type of training had not been available to our in-service officers during previous academies, it was determined that all officers would receive this training over the following 2 years. The goal of the class was to build empathy for our community of adolescents, promote understanding of the factors present or not present in decisions made by this community, improve the ability of our personnel to communicate and serve children under all circumstances, explore alternatives to a zero-tolerance approach to law enforcement for this group, and assess more effective responses than arrest, develop communication strategies for interacting with teens, and reduce court referrals for minor or status offenses. As nearly 3 years of monthly instructional sessions have concluded, these instructors dedicated themselves to bringing the many messages of this class forward to over 750 members of our department and our community. They have worked collaboratively to assist in developing the class and have worked faithfully to deliver its contents to our officers. Additionally, these instructors have worked to revise policies and change practices to better connect with children and families in need. The impact of these lessons will resonate in the minds of our student officers for the remainder of their service and will persist as a training imperative for our agency in the future. The work of these instructors has gathered national attention, being featured in the 2 most recent collaboratives of the National Juvenile Detention Alternatives Initiative. The actions of these instructors was substantially above normal requirements, and they demonstrated a high degree of personal initiative with the continued instruction of the classes throughout the ranks, as well as more than 3-year commitment that was made to deliver this material. They displayed exemplary and sustained performance in the delivery of the classes, all to support trusting relationships and sustain the safety and potential of our youth. It is for these reasons that they are being awarded the Department's Unit Citation. Pastor Terrence Williams, Meritorious Public Service Award. In 2015, the Virginia Beach Police Department's 1st Precinct hosted a town hall meeting in the Princess Anne Plaza area of the city to address citizens' concerns regarding neighborhood matters. Pastor Terrence Williams, known in the community as Pastor T, approached officers at that time with a desire to help our department work towards repairing broken ties between the police and the community in that area. A short time after that meeting, Pastor T invited members of the police department to a community day that he was hosting at his church. That event was an overwhelming success, which led Pastor T to invite the police department to several more field days. During those field days, Pastor T would break the negative view that the neighborhood held towards police in general and encourage people to see the good in what we do. His message was that of neighborhood togetherness, that crime never pays, and he advocated for all of us to have respect for each other. Pastor T would routinely educate the young attendees of his events and congregation on respecting their area and each other. He would teach and encourage cleaning up the space you're in, crime prevention, and drug resistance. In 2016, Pastor T continued to have regular field days and encourage positive police-citizen encounters. In August, Pastor T hosted a march in the community that incorporated the slogan, "All Lives Matter." During this march, Pastor T walked hand in hand with officers as a sign of unity, and after the event, he hosted a question and answer session where residents were able to express concerns to us and ask questions that led them to being educated on police procedures, tactics, and responses. The community took very well to this event, and all in attendance took some information from the session. This Q&A session was posted online by one of the attendees, and the responses from the community were very positive and encouraging. In December, Pastor T organized a blessing tree gift event, which provided Christmas presents for 25 underprivileged children. Pastor T invited the police department to participate, and as a result, 2 kids were sponsored by the police department, further building the bond in that area. In 2017, it became evident that Pastor T's message was being received loud and clear by the youth in his community. One of his young members decided to host a food drive as part of a school project. The food drive was aimed towards benefiting the homeless population around the plaza area. Pastor T approached officers about his visions to take this relationship that had been fashioned to other troubled neighborhoods in our city, and to demonstrate that they too can have the same bond. So he organized a field day in the Scarborough Square neighborhood park, and as usual, invited the police department. During that day, Virginia Beach Police Explorers talked with several teenagers that showed high interest in becoming explorers and possibly pursuing a career in law enforcement. Pastor T has continued to make positive changes and continues to spread the motto of respect for all. He has long-term commitment to his community and is persistent in building the bridge between the community and the police department. His dedication, uplifting enthusiasm, and yearning to inspire people to be positive role models are just a few of the reasons that he is being awarded the department's Meritorious Public Service Award. Officer Kyle Coffey, Life Saving Award. On March 10th, 2017, Officer Coffey was assisting another officer on a traffic stop near the intersection of Dorset Avenue and Cleveland Street. Officer Coffey observed another vehicle traveling the wrong way on the roadway. That vehicle was quickly approaching their location at the traffic stop. The female driver abruptly stopped her vehicle behind Officer Coffey's vehicle, jumped out, screamed for help. Officer Coffey disengaged from the traffic stop to ascertain what was occurring. As he approached the vehicle, Officer Coffey observed an elderly male passenger in the vehicle who was doubled over, appeared to be blue in the face, and was making gurgling noises. The female driver was frantically yelling, "He isn't breathing, do something." Officer Coffey immediately requested for EMS to respond to the scene as he began to assess the man's condition. Officer Coffey sat the victim upright in the vehicle in an effort to open his airway. This action was not immediately successful, so Officer Coffey supported the man against the seat with his left hand while using his right hand to perform abdominal thrusts. After repeating the abdominal thrust several times, fluid exited the victim's mouth. He then bent over and coughed up a large amount of food that had been lodged in his throat. The man continued to cough, and the coloring began to return from blue to a normal tint. Officer Coffey stayed with the victim, monitoring his condition and keeping him calm until EMS personnel arrived. There is no doubt from the circumstances of this incident that if Officer Coffey had not responded to the woman's plea for assistance in a quick, calm, and effective manner, the outcome would have been much different. Given their location, away from any other available medical care, the victim's advanced age, and the fact that most people will begin to suffer irreparable hypoxic brain injury or death after as little 3 minutes without breathing, there's little doubt that Officer Coffey saved this person's life. It is for this reason that Officer Kyle Coffey is being awarded the department's Life Saving Award. Sergeant Shunk, Mpos Seth Cope, Officer Torres, Life Saving Award. On June 23rd, 2016, at approximately 5:30 p.m., Sergeant Shunk, MPO Cope, and Officer Torres responded to a call for a cardiac arrest related to a drowning incident that involved a 2-year-old child who had fallen into the family's pool. Upon arrival at scene, MPO Cope and Officer Torres took over CPR that the child's family members had initiated. They began chest compressions and airway management until Sergeant Shunk arrived. Sergeant Shunk utilized an ambu bag to provide rescue breaths. The child began to show signs of improvement, but was still critical. EMS transported the child to a local hospital for treatment, and thankfully, a full recovery was made. Their quick response and the proper employment of CPR prior to the arrival of fire and EMS were crucial to the survival of the victim. The officers were unwavering in their efforts that day to save the life of a child, and their display of professionalism and dedication were essential during such an emotional time for the family. It is for these reasons that Sergeant Shunk, MPO Cope, and Officer Torres are being presented with the department's Life Saving Award. Officer Kevin Burkhart, Life Saving Award. On July 1st, 2017, just after midnight, 2nd Precinct officers responded to a call for a stabbing that had occurred near the intersection of Laskin and Nevin Road. Upon arrival on scene, Officer Burkhart located a male victim lying on the ground with a significant wound to the torso, as well as a severe laceration to his arm. Officer Burkhart detected evidence that an arterial bleed was taking place. Recognizing the severity of the injuries, Officer Burkhart acted immediately and applied a tourniquet to the arm of the victim. He held pressure to the chest wound until EMS personnel arrived on scene to take over life-saving efforts. The victim was transported to a local hospital for treatment. The doctors who treated him stated that Officer Burkhart's actions of accurately recognizing that an arterial bleed was evident and the swift actions he took to prevent life-threatening blood loss, without a doubt, saved this man's life. It is for these reasons that Officer Burkhart is being awarded the department's life-saving award. Master Police Officer Terry Westbury, Officer Jeffrey Leathers, life-saving award. April 3rd, 2017, 9:06 p.m., Mpos Westbury and Officer Leathers were dispatched to Great Neck Circle for a cardiac arrest case. The details of the call stated that a person was unconscious and not breathing at this location as a result of an overdose. Officer Leathers arrived on scene at 9:10 p.m. and entered the residence to find the victim lying on the floor, unconscious and not breathing. The 911 caller was attempting CPR. Officer Leathers immediately took over and began compressions. After the first round of compressions was complete, Officer Leathers retrieved his pocket mask and began administering rescue breaths. At this point, Mpos Westbury took over chest compressions as fire department personnel arrived on scene. Officer Leathers and Mpos Westbury continued CPR while the fire department set up their equipment. Several minutes later, the victim began to breathe on his own and had regained a radial pulse. At 9:20 p.m., fire department personnel confirmed a conversion. The victim was transported to a local hospital for treatment and made a full recovery. Because of their swift response and the ability to implement first aid, a life was saved. It is for these reasons that Mpos Westbury and Officer Leathers are being awarded the Departmental Life-Saving Award. This is Officer Leathers' 7th Life-Saving Award. Officers Brian Morgan and Peter Mantoni, Life-Saving Award. On March 5th, 2017, a Priority 2 cardiac arrest call was dispatched on Piney Branch Drive for a 62-year-old male that was not breathing. Officers Mantoni and Morgan arrived on scene and located the male in a back bedroom of the residence. The male was lying on the bed, unresponsive. The officers cleared an area on the floor to make it conducive to begin life-saving efforts. They repositioned the victim to the floor and began CPR. Firefighters arrived on scene and began to assist the officers. Officer Mantoni was provided a mask and a bag to deliver breaths, while one of the firefighters started chest compressions. Officer Morgan then took over chest compressions as the fire department set up the AED. At this time, the victim was in cardiac arrest and there was no pulse. After one shock from the AED, the victim began to show signs of a pulse. Shortly after the shock, the victim began to breathe on his own. He was transported to a local hospital for treatment. According to the EMTs and emergency room staff, the collective efforts of the first responders undoubtedly saved this man's life. Officers Morgan and Mantoni's quick response, teamwork, and proper deployment of first aid skills gave this person the opportunity to survive. It is for these reasons they are being awarded the department's life-saving award. Officer Mohammed Shawkat, life-saving award. On April 15th, 2017, Officer Shawkat responded to a call for a 27-year-old in cardiac arrest. The caller relayed information to our 911 dispatchers that the subject was unconscious, not breathing, and was turning blue in color. Officer Shawkat was the first to arrive on scene and observed neighbors attempting to start CPR. Officer Shawkat immediately recognized from the case comments and from statements that were being provided to him from witnesses on scene that this was more than likely going to be a heroin overdose. Officer Shawkat administered 1 dose of Narcan to the individual. After that initial dose, color started to return to the person's face and body, but he was still unconscious. Rescue arrived on scene and administered a 2nd dose of Narcan. The individual then regained consciousness and was transported to a local hospital for follow-up. Officer Shawkat's accurate assessment, quick actions, and his confidence in the proper utilization of Narcan is a testament to his professionalism and training. Officer Shawkat's actions that day were essential in preventing another tragic opioid-related death. Because of this, Officer Shawkat is being awarded the department's Life-Saving Award. MPO Michael Zeger, Life-Saving Award. On July 7th, 2017, MPO Zeger responded to a call for service for a 3-week-old baby who was neither conscious or breathing due to an apparent accidental suffocation. Upon arrival on scene, officers observed the infant, who was blue in color, bleeding from the mouth, and appeared lifeless. MPO Zeger immediately began performing CPR on the infant while waiting for EMS to arrive. He was able to remain composed and properly perform CPR amidst the presence of the child's very emotional parents. When EMS arrived, they continued with life-saving efforts and transported the baby to a local hospital. Initially, the assistance of machines to maintain life was required, and the outlook appeared poor at best. The infant has remained hospitalized, but is slowly making improvements and may soon be going back home with his family. It is because of MPO Zeger's professionalism, ability to remain calm during a high-stress environment, and his successful implementation of first aid training that has given this child a chance at life. It is for these reasons that MPO Zeger is being awarded the department's Life-Saving Award. Officers Benjamin Flynn, Michael Cook, and Trey Maupin, Life Savings Award. On January 1st, 2017, at approximately 1:30 a.m., officers were dispatched to a residence for a report of a dispute and possible gunfire. Officers Flynn, Cook, and Maupin arrived on scene to find an injured man lying on top of a vehicle. The man's girlfriend was with him, trying to support him in an upright position. The officers observed a large amount of blood on the person's shirt, and by pulling up his shirt, they discovered what appeared to be a gunshot wound near his heart. Officer Flynn brought a go bag with first aid equipment. Utilizing gauze and bandages from the bag, Officer Cook applied pressure to the wound in an effort to control the bleeding. Officers Flynn and Maupin examined the victim's torso and lower extremities to be sure there were no other injuries. By this time, the victim had lost a large amount of blood and was unable to hold himself up. Officers Flynn and Maupin had to brace the individual on the hood of the vehicle to prevent him from sliding off. All 3 officers continued to engage the victim, attempting to keep him alert until EMS personnel arrived. Due to the location of the wound and the amount of blood that the victim had already lost, his chances of survival would have been undeniably diminished had it not been for the expeditious first aid efforts that were provided by these officers. Their actions that day were instrumental in saving the life of another. Because of this, officers Benjamin Flynn, Michael Cook, and Trey Maupin are being awarded the Life Savings Award. MPO Al Deangelis, Life Saving Award. Mr. Joshua Stokes, Civilian Life Saving Award. On October 26, 2016, MPO Deangelis was working part-time at the Harris Teeter and Sam's Club parking lot on Virginia Beach Boulevard. Police dispatch put out a call for an accident with injuries across the street at the Home Depot on Virginia Beach Boulevard. A single vehicle had lost control and struck a pedestrian in the parking lot. The victim was in the process of loading the back of his vehicle when he was struck, pinning him between the 2 vehicles. His left leg was almost completely severed off, and there was heavy femoral bleeding. Mr. Joshua Stokes was in the parking lot, witnessed the crash, and heroically rushed to the victim's aid. He removed his personal pants belt and attempted to apply it as a tourniquet to the victim's leg. At the same time, MPO Deangelis, upon hearing the call for service, left his part-time assignment and responded to the scene. The actions Mr. Stokes took slowed the bleeding and helped keep the victim conscious until MPO Deangelis arrived a short time later. MPO Deangelis applied his department-issued tourniquet, which successfully stopped the bleeding. If either the pants belt or the department-issued tourniquet had not been applied to the victim in the timely manner that they were, the victim would have lost consciousness and bled out. The EMS chief on scene, Captain Kyle Paget, confirmed that had it not been for their quick thinking and the confident, life-saving efforts made by both Joshua Stokes and MPO Deangelis, the victim would not have survived this ordeal. Their early recognition of the life-threatening bleed and immediate placement of the tourniquets gave the patient a chance for a positive outcome. It is for these reasons that Mr. Joshua Stokes and MPO Albert Deangelis are being awarded the department's life-saving award. Officers Ross Stolley and Michael Weeks, life-saving with Valor Award. On January 15th, 2017, a citizen called 911 to report that a male was in the water near the rocks at the First Street jetty. The caller stated the individual appeared to be in distress and weak. Upon their arrival, Officers Stolley and Weeks observed the individual face down in the water, approximately 25 to 30 yards from the shore, bobbing against the rocks. At this time, several onlookers had gathered on the beach. Without hesitation, both officers quickly went into the frigid water. They had to go in further than waist deep, but by working together, they were able to bring a barely responsive victim, who was rather large in stature, to the shore. The officers immediately began rendering first aid to the victim, striving to bring his body temperature up by covering him with blankets that were provided by others, as well as their own jackets. They did all of this despite the fact that they too were now wet and extremely cold themselves. Fire and EMS arrived on scene and ultimately transported the victim to a local hospital where he made a full recovery. It should be noted that this was a particularly cold day. The air and water temperature were approximately 40 degrees. At this temperature, the human body begins shutting down after about 10 minutes. It is unknown how long the individual had been in the water before being discovered, but it was roughly 5 to 6 minutes between the time that the initial 911 call was dispatched and the officer's arrival on scene. Captain Mosley with the Virginia Beach Fire Department, who responded to the scene that day, stated, "Both officers undoubtedly placed themselves in harm's way by entering the water that was so cold. But without their quick actions, the chance of survival for the patient would have been greatly reduced." Officers Stolley and Weeks placed themselves at significant risk in order to save the life of a complete stranger. The quick and selfless actions of both officers were instrumental in preventing a tragedy on this date. It is for these reasons that Officers Ross Stolley and Michael Weeks are being awarded the Life-Saving with Valor Award. Mr. Jesse K., Citizen Commendation Award. On April 18th, 2017, at approximately 10:51 a.m., two masked men entered the PNC Bank located at 4848 Virginia Beach Boulevard and demanded money from the tellers. Mr. Jesse K. was standing in one of the teller lines as a customer of the bank at the time of the robbery. The suspects also ordered Mr. K. to put the money he had just withdrawn, as well as his wallet, onto the counter. The suspects retrieved the bank's and Mr. K.'s money from the counter and fled on foot. As the suspects were running off, Mr. K. told the bank employees that he was going to follow them to see where they were going. Disregarding their advice not to go, Mr. K. walked out of the bank and saw the suspects cross the parking lot. And when he was confident that they were not returning to the bank, he got into his own vehicle and headed their direction. Mr. K. tailed the suspects and observed them get into a white Jeep that was parked in an adjacent parking lot, being operated by a third suspect. Mr. K called 911 to advise them of the robbery, as well as telling the dispatcher that he was following the suspect vehicle. He provided the dispatcher with the license plate number of the Jeep while continuing to follow the suspects. When officers arrived in the area, Mr. K directed them to the suspect vehicle. The officers attempted to conduct a traffic stop. However, the driver did not immediately pull over. When the vehicle eventually came to the stop, the two passengers took off running, at which time Mr. K, again, disregarding his own safety, went around the building to see if he could cut them off. When Mr. K saw that the officers were able to successfully place the suspects in custody, he went back to the bank to give his statement to detectives. Mr. K's actions to disregard his own safety is above and beyond what is ordinarily expected of a citizen. His quick actions led to the apprehension of 3 bank robbers and the recovery of all the stolen money. Furthermore, it was learned through investigation that these suspects had not only committed this robbery, but they had also committed a previous unsolved bank robbery that had occurred in April at another location. It is citizens like Mr. K that go above and beyond what is expected of them to do good for their community by assisting law enforcement that make the city of Virginia Beach the safest city in the nation. It is because of his courageous and gallant actions that day that Mr. Jesse K is being awarded the Citizens Commendation Award. Miss Jacqueline Crow, Citizens Commendation Award. On Tuesday, October 3rd, 2017, at approximately 7 o'clock a.m., Sergeant Scott Campbell went to the Badass Coffee Shop for a cup of coffee. Just prior to placing in his order, an individual entered the business and began yelling obscenities. Within seconds, the individual began assaulting Sergeant Campbell by punching him numerous times on the head and face. Sergeant Campbell struggled to gain control of the subject, but was unable to do so. While Sergeant Campbell made several attempts to gain the upper hand, each attempt failed. During this time, the assaultive individual was continuously striking Sergeant Campbell. Miss Jacqueline Crow, an employee at the coffee shop, witnessed the assault and stepped from behind the counter to help Sergeant Campbell. She began hitting the individual, attempting to stop the attack on our officer. Mrs. Crow's efforts were successful as the assaultive suspect became distracted enough for Sergeant Campbell to begin to gain control of the situation. The individual then ran from the store. Sergeant Campbell was able to chase him down on foot and place him into custody within a short distance. All too often, people stand back, watch, and do nothing to help a fellow citizen or a police officer. Miss Jacqueline Crow stepped in, and not only did she assist, she likely saved Sergeant Campbell from sustaining any serious injuries. When asked about the incident and why she stepped in to help, she simply replied, "It was the right thing to do." It is with pride, appreciation, and thanks that Sergeant Campbell, the command of the 2nd Precinct, the Virginia Beach Police Department, and all of our members wish to recognize Miss Jacqueline Crow for her fearlessness, her outstanding efforts, and assistance. It is for these reasons that she is being awarded the department's Citizen Commendation Award. So as a side note to that, Mr. K and Ms. Crow, we are hiring. Officer William Ahern and K-9 Bear, Medal of Merit. Officer Ahern and his partner K-9 Bear are being recognized for their outstanding, sustained performance as a team in K-9 operations from August 2013 to the present day. This K-9 team has performed consistently well, exceeding the other 14 teams in the unit. The working relationship that this handler has with his K-9 partner has made them a highly effective and productive team. During this period, they have been responsible for 18 deployments with successful apprehensions with force. To put that into perspective, the next highest producing team has only 8 during the same time period. These apprehensions occur during very dangerous and critical incidents where their actions reduce risk to officers and citizens alike. They have involved numerous dangerous violations such as armed robbery, burglary, detonating explosive devices, stolen auto, and felony domestic violence. The suspects at times have been armed and have displayed violent behavior towards police. In addition, MPO Ahern and Canine Bear have been responsible for 120 apprehensions without force, 76 felony arrests, and 45 misdemeanor arrests. MPO Ahern and Canine Bear have been honored by the Virginia Work Dog Association twice with the Award of Merit in 2014 and 2016. MPO Ahern and Canine Bear started out in canine as both a young officer and brand new dog, but have evolved into the most productive canine team currently working. This is largely due to the hard work they have both put in to hone their skills as police canine and handler. Night after night, they perform to the highest level, displaying initiative and bravery while oftentimes placing themselves in life-threatening situations, with little regard for their own safety and well-being, in order to protect the citizens and other officers of Virginia Beach. They are an enduring attribute to the canine unit, and it is because of their dedication and professionalism that they are both being awarded the department's Medal of Merit. MPOs Brian Decker and Edward Donahue, Silver Cross. On May 29, 2016, at approximately 1:20 a.m., MPO Brian Decker and MPO Ed Donahue were in the 2000 block of Atlantic Avenue in front of the old-time photo. MPO Decker noticed that a large group of people that were assembled in the area began to part and run away from a particular male who was amongst the crowd. The individual had drawn a handgun from his waistband and began to level it towards the crowd. MPO Decker observed this behavior and alerted other officers in the area that there was an armed suspect. The suspect realized that the officers had witnessed this activity and turned away from view to put the handgun back in his waistband and attempt to flee. Recognizing the immediate danger to innocent civilians in the area, MPOs Decker and Donahue immediately approached the armed suspect and attempted to place him into custody. The suspect still had his hand on the gun that was now in the waistband of his pants as he began resisting arrest. MPOs Decker and Donahue struggled with the suspect, forcing them to take him to the ground while they attempted to place him in handcuffs. The suspect retained control of the weapon he had in his hand and refused to let go of it, even though the officers continually directed him to show his hands. MPOs Decker and Donahue were eventually successful in prying the suspect's arms free, giving them the opportunity to handcuff him. The weapon, however, was still concealed, and due to the uncooperative nature of the suspect, MPO Decker was forced to cut open the suspect's pants to retrieve the loaded firearm. Later, it was learned that another individual in the crowd that night was the suspect's intended target, and had it not been for the professionalism, dedication, restraint, and split-second thinking displayed by both MPOs Decker and Donahue, the situation could have certainly resulted in serious injury or death. Both officers acted swiftly, decisively, and displayed bravery in the presence of great danger, all at the expense of their own personal safety in order to protect the citizens of Virginia Beach from harm. It is for these reasons that MPO Decker and MPO Donahue are being awarded the Department's Silver Cross. We will also be presenting at a later time our department's Blue Star to an officer who was injured while serving a warrant He was shot and injured. This award will be presented to him at a later time. We would also like to acknowledge 72 members of our department for their dedication, commitment, and persistent efforts in solving a series of random shootings and homicides that took place in our city between November 29th and December 7th of 2016. Each member had a significant role in deciphering the case, whether their role was as an investigator, a member of a specialty unit that tirelessly searched for evidence, or participated in nonstop surveillance operations. The crimes that were occurring generated fear and uncertainty in communities within our city. Diligence and the collective efforts of all involved brought an end to the attacks, enabling the citizens of those communities to rest at ease. The 72 officers involved are being awarded the department's Significant Incident Award. Recognition to these individual officers will take place at their various commands. We'd also like to note that at our next award ceremony, we will be recognizing recipients of the Virginia Beach Police Department's Humanitarian Ribbon. It will be awarded in partnership with the City of Virginia Beach's Human Rights Commission. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes our program. Thank you for joining us today for this special occasion. Congratulations to all of the award recipients. I would like to thank Becky Campbell, Rhonda Mitchell, Debbie Kapicki, and Michelle Ferrante for their assistance in preparing for today's ceremony. And now for the benediction will be led by Chaplain Gauthier.
Our God today, as Chief Severa has put it very graciously and astoundingly, we have seen extraordinary men and women do super extraordinary things. And we ask that the grace of God that is sufficient and the joy of God that is their strength and the peace of God that passes all human understanding in this greatest city in the world would be bestowed upon these officers and citizens who have stepped up to the plate to save lives, to be heroic, and to do the right thing. Bless their families, bless them, protect your officers and citizens in this city. Amen.